Welcome back everybody to Forza Horizon 5, and today we're taking a look at the final update for the car pass. It's been a long time coming, but yeah, we're going to be looking at the final 3 cars to be added to the car pass, and it's a little bit of a mixed bag, but still it should be an entertaining 3 cars to drive. So yeah, the first of those is the 2021 Aston Martin Dbx, the first ever SUV to be made by Aston Martin. Kind of jumping on that bandwagon that so many other car manufacturers have jumped on in the last few years or so, but it is the newest car that we have from Aston Martin in the game by 2 years, and yeah, it's got decent looking performance. The braking, the handling are all pretty decent, and the top speed looks okay, but to be honest, I think it has nowhere near the amount of power that it needs, given it weighs nearly £5,000, which granted is nowhere near the heaviest SUV going out there, but it's 4 litre twin turbocharged V8 is not going to be quite sufficient as, you know, I would like. Quite frankly, I would have at least liked about 600 horsepower. 543 is a little bit on the downside, quite frankly, but yeah, hopefully it will be a fun car to drive, and at least it doesn't look awful like some SUVs from manufacturers that generally haven't made them before generally look, like Porsche for instance, and Rolls-Royce with the Cullinan. So yeah, but let's move on to the second car. So it's the Lexus RCF Track Edition from 2020. I've always been a pretty big fan of the RCF, to be honest. I've always liked the kind of the way that it looks. I love its 5 litre naturally aspirated V8, which this car still has, and yeah, I've always found it a bit of a fun car to drive. So yeah, hopefully this will be even more fun to drive with all of the track additions to it. It's got a little bit extra horsepower, I think about 5 extra horsepower, about 7 extra pounds-feet of torque, weighs about a couple £100 less though, but the obvious addition is the rear wing there, and yeah, the handling that is going to bring about, because as you can see, handling and braking is rather excellent, and the top speed is pretty good still for a car that has that rear wing. Acceleration though could be a little bit better, but yeah, I'm a big fan of Lexus vehicles, so I'm glad this is on the game. I would have liked the the Lexus LC, their coupe, which is kind of like, it looks like an Lexus LFA, but with a naturally aspirated V8 instead of a naturally aspirated V10, and far cheaper than that LFA was. But yeah, if I was going to add a Lexus to this game, that would be one of them, or maybe a mid-90s LS400, but still, I am glad that we do have another Lexus. And finally, we have the 2019 Nissan 370Z Nismo. Never been a fan of the 370Z, in fact, I've never even been a fan of the 350Z, so yeah, I do hope that this Nismo version, you know, rekindles some of the sports car magic that has been missing from these latest Nissan sports cars. But yeah, still, handling and the top speed are pretty good. Acceleration and braking could be a damn sight better though, but it still weighs very little, less than £3,400, which is pretty good for a car that has 350 horsepower. But I've never been a fan of the engine in this car, the 3.7 litre V6. It's always sounded a bit of a awful, really. It just sounds like a noise, really. So yeah, it's never been an engine that I've been a big fan of, really. But hopefully the handling and the you know, how fun it is to drive will make up for it, because I imagine Nismo have hopefully worked their magic like they did with the GTR, which we had not long ago on this game. So yeah, looking forward to driving all 3 in some regards, but like I said, it's a little bit of a disappointment, really. I would have liked, you know, at least, you know, 2 of these to have been cars that we haven't already had, because the 370Z and the RCF at the end of the day are just, you know, slightly more track orientated versions of cars we already have. I'm fine with the DBX being on, because like I said, it's the first SUV that Aston Martin have made, and kind of a landmark car, so I can see why that would be in the game. I just wish these 2, at least we had, would have been at least cars from Nissan or Lexus that we haven't had before, because at the end of the day they are just slightly track orientated versions of standard cars. But still, I hope that they're all fun to drive, and yeah, you know, hopefully they'll add to the car pass in some way that is positive. But yeah, overall the car pass has been excellent, really. I really have no major complaints out of a couple of cars, really. We started off with the likes of the Subaru STI, which is a really rather fantastic Subaru, easily one of my favourite versions of the STI going. Then we got the gorgeous Renault 8 Gordini, looks great, really just essence of you know, sports car driving, really. Not mega powerful, but it doesn't weigh very much either. Sounds good, drives good, and yeah, it's just really rather entertaining to drive. Then we have the Mercury Cyclone spoiler. kind of a muscle car, kind of a luxury, cruiser, but still fantastic to have finally another Mercury in the game. Then we got the couple of Ferraris, J50 and the Monza SP2. Yeah, just fairly, enjoyable cars to drive in some respects, but the J50 did feel a bit like, just an open top version of another car that we've already had, because it shares the same engine with several other Ferraris. The Monza though is just mental really, and the way it looks and the fact it's got nearly 800 horsepower, so yeah, that was really rather fun. Then we got the Espada 400 GT from Lamborghini. I would have liked the Huracan to also be in this game, because it's the same kind of car and I would have liked to compare them, but still, love the fact we've got another 70s Lamborghini. Then we got the Huracan Evo, which, yeah, in the end of the day just felt like a slightly upgraded Huracan. Nothing too special, but still fun enough to drive, and yeah, excellent in terms of launch, acceleration and the handling and braking as well. And then we got the uber rare Jaguar XJ13, only one of these ever made, and yeah, absolutely gorgeous to look at and really rather fun to drive. 502 horsepower from 50 odd years ago is really rather impressive, and only weighs as little as it does as well. Then we get the XJ220S TWR, highly upgraded, highly modified version of the standard XJ220, and yeah, fantastic vehicle. Then the Ferrari Fx Xk Evo. This is one of those cars that I have a problem with, purely because it's a handling package for a car we already have. So yeah, nothing too special, but at least it will eat up the corners, and yeah, have no trouble in that regard. Then we had the Audi Tt Rs, really rather fantastic sports car, the best TT we've ever had. 400 horsepower, no, doesn't weigh all that much. It's got 50 horsepower more than the Nissan Nismo that we just looked at, and yeah, it weighs less. And yeah, just a fantastic all-rounder. Then we have the Porsche Sport Classic. Nice to have this back in the game, in the series, after it being away for a while. Haven't had this since Forza Motorsport 4, so yeah, really enjoyable car. Easily one of my favourite modern Porsches, even though it's kind of aping on the classics. Then we got the Mazda323 Gtr, car that is in some essence like the Nissan Pulsar, but yeah, still really rather a fun little hatchback. Not mega powerful, but still fun. Then we have the Golf R. It's just basically a slightly more, upgraded, slightly heavier version of another Golf that we've already had plenty of times before. But, at the end of the day, it's another modern hatchback, and I am a fan of those cars, so it's nice to have them. Then we got the awesome Mgx Power Svr, a car I've wanted in a Forza game for a very long time, and we got it, and it didn't disappoint. Even though it's not the best version of the car, because it's the automatic version, it's still a glorious car, and that 5 litre Mustang engine really does sound excellent. Then we got the Mustang SVO, the only Mustang we've ever had in a Forza game to not have a V8 engine, as yeah, it's got the 2.3 litre inline 4 turbocharged engine, nicked from a Pinto no less, although obviously heavily modified. And yeah, really enjoyable. Doesn't weigh very much, and yet it has a decent amount of power and torque, and yeah, really fun to drive, and easily one of my favourite cars to drive in online racing as well when upgraded. Then we got the Toyota Tundra Trd Pro, one of several Tundras, one of several TRD Pro versions of Toyotas that we've had. This is the most powerful of the bunch, but also the heaviest, but yeah, still more than capable of dealing with any of the off-road stuff, as you can see. But that's pretty much all it's capable of doing. Then we get the Noble M400, finally get another Noble in the game. We've had the M600 for the longest of time, but yeah, it's finally nice to have one of their older versions, and yeah, fantastic car in terms of braking, acceleration, handling and speed, and yeah, really fun to drive. Then the Ferrari Corsa Clienti 488, which yeah, I'm not a fan of whatsoever. It's at the end of the day just a track car for rich people that can afford to not only buy a 488 but also buy a track car as well, and yeah, that's all it basically is. It's not any better looking than it was originally, not any more powerful, a little bit lighter I think, but yeah, still nothing particularly special, and certainly the kind of car that should be on a Forza Motorsport game, not a Horizon game. Then we got the Oldsmobile Tornado, an absolutely superb car, one of the first front-wheel drive American cars, and definitely the first to have a massive 7 litre V8 engine in it, weighing nearly 4,500 pounds, but yeah, 385 horsepower and nearly 500 pounds-feet of torque isn't something you can argue with, but surprisingly it handles pretty well with all of that power going through those front wheels, and yeah, again, like the Mustang SVO, it's another favourite of mine to drive online. Then we got the 620R from McLaren, yeah, more of the same in some regards, but at least, you know, it's a decent handling and braking car. Then we get the Mini John Cooper Works GP, the most powerful Mini ever with 302 horsepower, an absolute hoot to drive, and yeah, a really rather fun hot hatchback. Then we got the 911 Speedster. Yeah, I can see why some people would have a complaint with this, because at the end of the day, it's just the you know, the GT3 engine in a normal 911. But because you can get the roof down, because you can hear that awesome sounding flat 6 engine, you know, it's the best of both worlds. You see, it's just a really good looking road car with a track engine basically inside of it, and yeah, really enjoyable. Then the F150 SVT Lightning doesn't handle for anything whatsoever, but you know, you got that awesome sounding V8 engine that was eventually put in the Ford GT, and yeah, really rather nice to hear, but not particularly good to drive, and not even all that great off-road either. Then we have the Nissan Safari is 370Z. Another reason why I have an issue with the 370Z Nismo is because we've already had a 370Z before, and now we've got another one as well. So yeah, decent off-roader, but yeah, nothing more than that, and at the end of the day, you could make a normal 370Z just as good off-road. Then we have the Tacoma, another TRD Pro, decent pickup truck, probably better than the Tundra just because it's lighter and feels a little bit more nimble, but yeah, definitely down on power in comparison to that car. Then we had the Dodge Magnum SRT-A, glorious V8 sounding engine, and one of the few American estates that we've ever had on a Forza game. The only other one we've had is the Country Squire, so yeah, and we've not seen that for a while either. So yeah, awesome car, and I'm really glad it's on the game. Then the M8 Competition Coupe, before BMW eventually ruined the look of their cars with their awful looking grills, we get this awesome machine, which is, yeah, a really good mix between sports car and Grand Tourer, and yeah, awesome to drive, plenty of power and torque, and yeah, looks absolutely amazing as well. Then the Audi Rs3 Sedan, which yeah, shares the same engine with the Tt Rs, so yeah, it's basically a hot, you know, a sports saloon with a sports car engine, and yeah, I'm fine with that considering it looks good and it drives really well. Then the Rs5 Coupe. This doesn't share the engine with the RS3 and the TT. It's a V6, 2.9 litre twin turbocharged V6, and yeah, produces the exact same power as its V8 equivalent from the previous generation, yet has way more torque, and yeah, absolutely really rather great car. It's pretty much on par with the M8, to be honest, even if it is down on power. And finally we got the Pickup LX from Volkswagen. Not powerful at all, easily the slowest, least powerful car in the car pass, but quite frankly I take it over the likes of the McLaren 620R or that Ferrari Racer any day of the week, because it's more interesting, and yeah, it challenges you when you want to race it hard, because you have to work it to the bone to try and get it anything out of it, quite frankly. So yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, no, 6, 7, yeah, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 cars out of the 42, because obviously these were included in that 42, but I'm not interested in drifters whatsoever. So yeah, 24 out of 42 is pretty solid. That is more than half by a comfortable margin. And at the end of the day, even though I'm not a massive fan of the likes of the J50, the Huracan, the Golf R, and the 620R, at the end of the day, they are still, you know, enjoyable to drive to some degree. And obviously that 24 does not include these three, which I may well even enjoy. So we could be going as high as 27, and I think that is the best, you know, amount of cars that I've enjoyed out of a car pass ever since you ever started doing them. So yeah, really impressed with this car pass. Great value for money, and yeah, it's kept this game interesting by, you know, drip feeding cars week by week. So yeah, if you still haven't got the car pass, then I do highly recommend getting it. But yeah, expect to see reviews of these final 3 cars when they come out. So the 23rd for the Aston, the 30th of June for the Lexus, and finally 7th of July for 370Z. So yeah, nonetheless, thanks for watching, thanks for the support on this game, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.